Hey guys, welcome to another of your virtual lessons. Today, actually, guys, I apologize that I'm not here. I'm actually at a meeting right now, so you get virtual towers instead of real towers. But to keep you on pace, we're going to talk about and introduce to you guys the concept of the imaginary number system and dealing with operations in this system. It's pretty easy work. A lot of it's calculator based, so hopefully you guys will catch on pretty quickly and do what you need to do for yourselves. Just a reminder for you guys, weekly reviews due on Friday. And while I give you a little bit before we get started, make sure you get your homework down for this evening. All right, so hopefully you guys are all set. With that said, talking about the imaginary unit system, basically the concept behind it is that we can work in two different number systems. The one we're most confident with and the one we use the most is known as the real number system. So every single number that you can think of, decimals, fractions, positives, negatives, rational, irrational, they all fall under this system of the real numbers. However, there are certain types of situations where we cannot calculate values in that system, and we use this other system known as the imaginary number system. As you guys can see in the definition here, the imaginary number system is used when we have a negative number in our radicand. And you notice the notation there. Now, to kind of make the point for a second, if you guys happen to have your calculators, and if you can pull them out, let's say we wanted to take the square root of a negative number. And we could pick any negative number just to emphasize the point. In this case, we'll take the square root of negative 4. If you guys hit enter, many of you will get this error message stating that there's no real answers. And that's because we cannot take the square root of a negative. There's no two numbers that, when multiplied together, create a negative value. Think about it. Negatives times negatives create positives, and positives times positives create positives. So to take the square root of a negative number, we actually have to work in a different number system. And we're going to do that throughout the course of the year. So to make sure your calculator is a useful tool for this, I need you guys to all go to your mode key. And you'll notice if you arrow down that there's this option called A plus BI mode. We want to have our calculator turned on to that. And because with this, we're actually able to work in the imaginary number system anytime we want. To go back to our example that we used, now that we have our calculator turned on to its proper mode, we can actually get answers in that imaginary number system. And you notice the I, the notation of I, is your imaginary number system. And again, all that refers to is dealing with the negative value inside your radicand. Now with that, what we're going to talk about today is just basic operations using the imaginary number system and powers of I. One of the cool things about the imaginary number system is that there's only 4 values that you can get as solutions when you're working with different powers of I. And as you guys can see in this chart, those values are 1, I, -1, and -I. Those are the only 4 values that the imaginary number system utilizes. So with that, we need to be able to calculate any imaginary number value raised to any different type of exponent. Now, there is a cycle, if you will, that's created by these 4 values, but instead of teaching you guys the cycle, we're actually going to use our calculator to do this. And here's how it looks. To work with our powers of I, what we're going to do is we're going to utilize our calculator and use this function known as MathPart. So what you'll do is you'll open up your math menu by hitting your math key. You'll arrow over to the numbers folder and choose option 3, which is IPart. So to show you what it looks like to get in your calculator on your own, you're going to go to your math button, opening up your math menu. We have our math folder, but we want to arrow over to the numbers folder. And if we arrow down to IPart, this function in your calculator will help you guys calculate all values of I that exist. To show you my point, here's a couple of different examples for you. I'll do two, and you guys will have a couple minutes to try it on your own. So if we wanted to calculate I to the 7th, as we said, all these questions here simplify down to one of four answers. 1, I, -1, or -I. To do that, we're just going to use the calculator. If you go into your IPart function, all you have to type in is your I, which is the second and the decimal point, and raise that power of I to whatever exponent you have. In this case, we have I to the 7th. And when we hit enter, we see that that simplifies to -I. And that works for all these examples. Every answer you should get should be one of those four key values. 1, I, -1, -I. I'll do one more with you, and then I'll give you guys a chance to try the rest of them on your own and get used to using your IPart feature. So again, it's hit your math key, arrow over to numbers. We're using IPart. And our next example was I, which once again is second decimal point, raised to the 22nd power. Hit enter, and in this case, this value simplifies to -1. And you guys can do the remaining examples on your own. If you could, pause the video, give it about 2-3 minutes. Guys, try them on your own, check them over, and then just restart the video from here on the next topic that we will do with our operations of I. All right, so now that you guys have tried your powers of I, now we can actually do operations that use the imaginary unit and different powers of I. To do this, it's a pretty simple process. We're going to first simplify the power of I using IPart, as we just saw, and then whatever operations or arithmetic that we have, whether it's addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, we're just going to simply do. And that's it. Once we take care of the power of I, you guys are going to be left with a pretty basic operation to do. So to show you our examples here, just here's two of them, and again, you guys can try the remainder on your own. So we have 7I to the 7th plus 15I to the 15th. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to break this guy up into its two parts. We can actually calculate 7I to the 7th because we want to take care of that power of I and simplify it into one of its four possibilities. We're going to then do the same thing to 15I to the 15th and then add whatever remains using our basic rules for algebra and our basic rules for arithmetic. So, again, it's basically a calculator feature. We're going to go math, IPart, and we can actually type into the parentheses this time 7I to the 7th. And when you guys hit enter, it will actually calculate that out for you. And in this case, we see that that value is equal to -7I. Now we need to take care of our other piece. So we're going to do our math part, or math arrow over to IPart, feature again. And we're going to type in 15I raised to the 15th. When you hit your enter, you see that this guy simplifies down to -15I. And now to actually do the math, you guys are going to treat the I like a variable. As long as they are like terms, which we have here, they both have I as their like term, we can actually combine these together and get a final answer of -22I. The process, guys, is the same no matter what the operation is. In example 2, you see multiplication. We're going to basically do the same setup. Take 4I to the 20th, take 6I to the 13th, simplify them, and then actually multiply whatever remains out. To quickly see that one, I'll show you both parts. IPart one more time. And in this case, we're going to do 4I to the 20th. Which becomes the value of 4. So that one actually worked out to be a very nice, integer value, and we're going to multiply that by whatever 6i to the 13th simplifies to. So to clear this all out, redo our I part one more time. 6i raised to the 13th. Oops, excuse me, guys. Math. I part. There we go. 6i to the 13th power. We hit enter, and we get 6i. And now, 4 times 6i, as you would guess, becomes 24i. And that's all there is to it. There are your basic operations and basic work with powers of I. So just to recap, the imaginary number system is the number system we use when we have negatives in our radicand. And you notice the I standing for the imaginary unit, and that is representative of the square root of a negative number. In this case, specifically -1. When we actually do the work with the powers of I, notice that all our values break down to one of 4 potential values. 1, I, -1, -I. And to actually find these values, or to simplify powers of I, we're going to use our I part feature in the calculator. And if we have situations where we're using the I part feature to then perform operations, basically what we're going to do is use the calculator, get the I part work, simplify each term, and perform whatever operation exists, whether it's adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. And that's pretty much the deal with the imaginary unit. We'll do more with it tomorrow. We'll recap what we need. But just so you guys can see, as usual, here are 2 past Regents questions talking very simply about what we've done today. Notice, question 1 is using just simple powers of I, and question 2 is using powers of I in operation setups. Hopefully everything went well. I'll see you guys tomorrow in class. For the remaining time, you guys are going to work on your classwork, and if you need any help, of course, work together and see how you guys do with this. We'll take care of business and recap it all with the do now tomorrow. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks.